going to have to force her into bankruptcy to get this property. Okay? That's the way it would work. Because she would have to pay off not only the mortgage, right, with the sale price, but she would also have to pay off this $160 or whatever it was, $1,000. My buyer, you know, he's very experienced. I can't even imagine how many properties he owns. He goes, forget it, cancel it. So he canceled it. What I did do, though, is call the agent and just yelled at him for not paying attention to his listing, okay? Because it put a whole lot of people with a whole lot of work that was unnecessary. Because you know what? That's an unsaleable, non-warrantable property. There's everybody that knows me knows that I've sold well over 2,000 fourplexes in my career, okay? So back in the 2003, 4, and 5, people, agents, sellers would bring me groups of fourplexes to sell, okay? And there's a group of fourplexes in Mesa, and there's 10 of them, okay? And there's a common area here, but there's no HOA, so there's 11 APNs, the common area and the 10 buildings, right? Okay, and I sold all 10 of them, but we did it on what we call a shared use agreement. So instead of forming an HOA, which is $60,000, whether it's 10 units or 600 units, we didn't form an HOA, we did a shared use. So we created another LLC that owned the common area. And each one of these buildings owned 1/10 of this LLC, and that works great. So, and in that document it says that, you know, you'll pay 1/10 of the expenses, the taxes, the insurance. That was a pool in the middle, by the way, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we all know the market dropped, but here's what happened then. Title companies and agents don't know how, especially residential agents, don't understand shared use agreements. So if this building sells, the title company also has to amend the LLC and pull this owner out and put the new owner back in. So as the market goes on, and one of the clients that I'd sold to called me and said, Linda, you know, I'm going to foreclosure. Again, the market had tanked, right? And Linda, can you help me sell the building? And I said, sure. You know, so I listed it, and then I started looking at it. Well, this had $18,000 of taxes on it, but it was shared from everybody. But they had tagged all of the taxes to this one building. So not only was I going to sell it for whatever I was going to sell it for, but we had an $18,000 tax lien against the property that really should have been split up to everybody else. This actually was a short sale that I did. We got the bank to agree to pay that $18,000. But when I looked at the existing shared use agreement, this was probably about 5 years after I sold it, there were 31 people on that LLC now, because title had put some in, but not taken them out, and buildings had traded hands. It was a mess. Here's what I did as an agent at that point. I canceled the listing. I said, you know what, this has to be straightened out before I can deal with it. Okay? It's not my job to straighten out the LLCs, but what I did then, because I think I'm a nice person, not always, but sometimes, I actually sent a letter to every owner, just almost as a courtesy, to say, please contact your attorney and understand this shared use agreement that is recorded on the property. Okay? Did they straighten it out? I don't know. The last time I looked at those 10 fourplexes, last time I saw one on the market, it was still a mess, and I went, no. So I tell my buyers, we're not buying in there. We're just not. There's other buildings to buy. We don't need a headache like that. Okay? And it's not worth straightening out, by the way.
I'm just curious, how did that come about? I mean,
what do you mean, how did what come about?
All the 18,000 accrued to the one
Well,
property.
here's why, I don't know. A misrecording somewhere at the title company, I'm going to assume, because at some point, because when you look at these, and it's basically, this common piece is kind of like a tenants in common piece. So somewhere at some title company during some escrow, somebody recorded all against here. Okay.
Somebody's liable, though, in this situation, but
you know what? Again, I walked away.
Yeah. Right.
You know why? There are some things you just walk away from. Here's another thing on due diligence, guys. Your inspections, even your third parties, are the best money you spend if you walk away. Wouldn't you rather spend $10,000, $15,000 on a property to understand it is absolutely a bad property, right? rather than buy a $3 million property and now you've inherited whatever kind of headaches that you want. Your due diligence, and as an investor, if you're not willing to spend the money for that due diligence to make sure it's the right deal for you, you probably shouldn't be investing, okay? So, now the loan docs, the attorneys in the bank have agreed that the loan docs are fine, okay? So then it's a matter then of funding, like any traditional things, signing the documents, getting it recorded. I mean, then it's pretty much as smooth. But one thing that's important, if you have a tenant-occupied property, is your transition on the building. And this is not about loans, but I want you to be aware of this. The transition on the building is very important. Would you want to know, you've got, let's say it's multifamily, you've got 100 new tenants. What's the first thing they start saying? All new owners are going to raise rents, right? Well, maybe you are, maybe you're not. But as an owner or your property manager needs to get in there and talk to those tenants. There's nothing like communication, and explain to them, we're going to do this. If you're going to improve the building, you tell them you're going to improve the building, but then do it. You know what? Everything's fine, guys. Nothing's going to change. Then do it that way. Okay?
Time.
Yeah, go ahead and shut it off. We're okay. We're just going to talk now. So